Bonnie, who's next? Garrett. All right. Is it Garrett or Garrett?
It's Garrett.
Garrett. Okay. Well, Garrett in Afrikaans, you would be Garrett. But all right. Garrett, how you doing, brother?
How are you?
Very good. Thank you very much for asking. What is your question?
My question is, what are your general thoughts on the trailer of Dragonflight? Because the time I saw it, I was so pissed about it. After that, I watched a lot of streamers reacting to it, and also almost none of them were having a problem with it. There was, oh hey, we have dragons, wow, and I saw so many little details in this cinematic, story-wise or lore-wise, that made me so mad. And I thought, since you are very lore interested, what are your thoughts about it? Because there are many things for me personally that make no sense or were really lazy writing.
I mean, to be fair, we haven't seen a lot of the story of Dragonflight to really dive into what could be retcons. I'm assuming one of the things that pissed you off is Tyr, right? And the fact that they showed Tyr on the throne there. Am I correct in saying that is... Because that is one of the biggest, quote-unquote, potential retcons of the cinematic, right?
Not really. One of the minor things was really at the beginning. Most of it was the lines Alexstrasza had by saying, "Oh, the world is sundered. We must go to its aid," and then you hear the wings flapping. And my immediate thought was, the Dragonflights were already involved in this, and it sounded to me like they were chilling on their isle, and the world is sundered. Let's go and help them. But they were already involved in it.
Yeah, but I think what they were sort of doing there was more a case of, it's the world has sundered, we have to leave, right? Because if the world sunders to the point where the Dragon Isles becomes a threat, so the Dragon Isles could be consumed or something could go wrong and the Dragon Isles could get hurt, that will be a really bad thing. So it feels more like they were saying, it's time for us to leave our homeland. Not that they've been sort of chilling there for the whole time and then sort of like fucked up, right? Or sort of said, okay, fuck it, let's go help. It's more a case of they took their entire broods, like all of the Dragonflights, and said, okay, it's time for us to abandon our home to keep it safe, to make sure that the sundering does not affect this most holy of places on Azeroth. And we will leave. So I sort of read it very differently, because you are correct. The Dragonflights were very much part of the story around the Sundering, right? They were involved already on the goings on within Azeroth when that transpired. But it wasn't so much that I saw it as them just sort of chilling on the Dragon Isles and then finally taking flight as soon as they realized that the world had sundered, but more a case of, right, we have to get off. We can't be here anymore because our home is under threat as well. Let's protect our home by basically keeping it hidden, making sure no one can get here, and we now have to put a stop to the world that is breaking apart. The Tyr part of things, for those, because I know there's people that is very confused because Tyr didn't actually die there. There is a chance that this is simply a sort of an avatar of Tyr. So Tyr, when he left the Dragon Isles after he built it, or at least helped form it, he left an avatar of himself there, much like what Sargeras did with his avatar. We fought the avatar of Sargeras in... Oh, what raid was it again? The old Temple of Elune? What was that fucking raid called?
I can't really remember. It's too long ago.
Tomb of Sargeras, Matt, thank you. Fucking hell, thanks, yes. Tomb of Sargeras, he had his own, so there's a good chance that is simply his, that is just his, what you would call, an avatar of his, which is sort of apt because the avatar also misses an arm, which we know Tyr didn't have. So there's a lot, but I would say I didn't look at the cinematic so much from a lore perspective, and the reason for it is there wasn't much lore in there. And that's actually the thing that excites me most. for the first time ever. So if you really want to understand why I'm so excited for it, you have to go watch some of the cinematics that announces the new expansions for Final Fantasy XIV. So we all watched the cinematic we watched it along on stream, the cinematic for Stormblood. And then in that cinematic for Stormblood, they basically spoil almost nothing. They show you the new world that's coming. They show you that there's a new class coming. But that's it. There's no real story being spoiled. There's no real story being baked into it. It is effectively just a cinematic to introduce the new game that's coming. And I really thought that this was very similar to that. It is an expansion that shows the world that is coming. It shows that it is the Dragon Isles, as there are dragons there. But it doesn't spoil the story that we're meant to experience as we play through it. So I really didn't mind the cinematic that much. I would be curious, what other things did you notice in the cinematic that you thought was a little bit spoilery? Or
not necessarily spoilery, but it's for me it's just lazy writing or disrespectful to the lore we have. One of the things what was I think really stupid was they left their homeland, their precious homeland, with the Watchers, which I presume are Titan forged.
Yeah.
And the first thing these Watchers do after the fog is closed, they are go into sleep mode, and they're watching nothing. They are just standing by and wait for undefinite time to that the land awakens. And how do you they are tasked to light the pillar of Tyrhold to let the dragons know I don't know the fog is clear, you can come back home. But how can they do that when they are asleep? And after all, they all died, especially for one person, one Titan Forge who is alright, and the rest are all dead. And I think they are not affected by the curse of flesh, and so they are immortal.
I think you misread what happened there. So in my reading, and remember, all of this is headcanon, but in my reading, they effectively diverted power away from the Dragon Isles back to Azeroth. So effectively, if you look at Azeroth as a giant battery that is meant to sustain all world on top of it, with the Sundering, Azeroth lost a lot of power. So this is a power source that is on its last legs. It doesn't have the power to power everything. So the Dragonflight effectively diverted power away from the Dragon Isles back into Azeroth to give Azeroth enough power to survive so that she does not die. As a result of this, everything that is on the Dragon Isles actually sort of powered down. So it wasn't that they just decided to go back to sleep. The Watchers draw power from the very land itself. And without that power, with most of the power being diverted, the best they had was for one of these Watchers to kind of remain on standby. So the rest of them gave up all of their power so that Azeroth could survive, and they had one Watcher that sort of remained on standby, which is why you see the other Watchers sort of lost parts of their face already. You know, the weather really fucked them over because they completely had no power to them, just this one Watcher that had the power that was required. This doesn't mean that the other Watchers are dead, because remember, they do say that the land is now coming to life, and they actually told us that as we move through the Dragon Isles, we're actually going to see things waking up alongside us, right? So as we're running through this place, we might see these other Watchers sort of slowly becoming, alive again, as it were. These Watchers that's sort of standing on the beach there, they will eventually sort of wake up again as more and more power gets pushed back into the land. But the land had to go into hibernation, because this sort of answers a question that we've had ever since Shadowlands, where we're told at the beginning of Shadowlands that our connection to Azeroth is unique insofar as it anchors us it's one of the reasons when we die, we don't cross over into the Shadowlands, is because of this connection that we have with Azeroth. And if it's true that literally the existence of Azeroth is what gives all of us life, then that explains it, right? So we are all alive because Azeroth wills it. We basically survive on Azeroth's life force. If Azeroth sort of died tomorrow, we would all die alongside her. All life would just cease to exist. So Azeroth and us, we're basically fundamentally intertwined with one another. And that's sort of what I read in that the waking up scene. It was this one Titan that was, or this one Titan Watcher that was left there, and he had a small, minute amount of power. And the only thing he was programmed to do was, as soon as he felt a jolt of power, as the world was coming back to life, that would wake him up. So he was basically programmed to wake up as soon as he felt life return to the Isle. You know, the rest of them will wake up as time goes on, but he was programmed to be the first to wake up as soon as he recognizes that life is returning. So Azeroth once again has the power to fuel the Dragonflight as well. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I would be really pissed if I wake up and half of my face was torn off. So,
well, if you're a Watcher, you don't really give a fuck what you look like, right? You are a Watcher. Just grab a bit of clay there from the beach and just slap it on your face. You know, easy life. So I would say they would probably not mind as much. You know, time moves and time moves slowly. But yeah, ultimately, I think that specifically is something that can easily be explained still within the relevance of the lore. I didn't see anything on the expansion, however, that like anything on the expansion announcement, that cinematic, that had retcons in it that I couldn't explain in some way, shape, or form. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I was really worried that I was really nitpicky with this cinematic, because I saw so many YouTubers or streamers who had nothing really bad to say about it. And don't get me wrong, the cinematic was fine as it was. From cinematic standpoint, or the graphics was really good, and it's Blizzard. They already know what they're doing. So yeah, one other thing I found really, I don't want to say stupid, but really lazy was, I mean, as soon as this Watcher activated this pillar,
yeah,
the dragons are almost 5 seconds later are all there.
Yeah.
And I think that was just for dramatic reasons. That, oh, hey, Alexstrasza finally catches him to save this guy. And how can they be that fast there without knowing where they have to go?
All right, so easy answer here is, first and foremost, the location of the Dragon Isles is right next to Northrend. Most of the dragons spend most of their time in Northrend, specifically, you know, in oh my god, what's the zone just off the Borean Tundra? Dragonflight. Most of the dragons would be there for the most part. The more realistic option is, Alexstrasza states that without the beacon being lit once again, they would not be able to find their way back. So the island is completely hidden to them. But the Dragonflights are fundamentally intertwined with Azeroth. So as soon as they felt the lifeblood of Azeroth returning to them, and just for people that is sort of interested, how that lifeblood came back, I actually think it has something to do with the fight we had against Zuvul, because Zuvul would constantly do damage to Azeroth, and then we would use Anima to infuse Azeroth with more health. So we would basically use Anima in order to strengthen Azeroth, which means it was the Anima that Azeroth was missing. It was physically spirit. Remember, the early days of Azeroth is actually one of the few titans that consumed all of the spirit on Azeroth. Like, Azeroth consumed all of it. That's why we don't have a spirit elemental, because Azeroth consumed it. And so the idea here is that we gave Azeroth enough Anima so that she could once again gain her power. So she is now being fully healed. And as the Dragonflights experienced this, they started flying back to the old location of where their island would be, most likely sort of circling the general area where their island would be. And as soon as that beacon lighted, they were there already. They just couldn't know exactly where it was because obviously the entire island is shielded. But as soon as the beacon lightened, they were already there, so that's how they could get there. That's sort of the only explanation. Like, I'm with you. It was it was for cinematic effect, but as far as timing goes, Stony Tony should have fallen to his death, right? Because how did they get there that fast? But, so I get why they did it. It is a little stupid, but at the same time, there is a way to at least somewhat explain it.
Yeah. There was two more things, and one you have already kind of talked about in the clip, and that was Alexstrada said the world is healed. She definitely didn't look to Siltis, where the sword is stuck in, and you made a video about it. I can't understand how the world is healed with a big sword in it, but you talked about being a sword in the ass.
I'm gonna be honest with you. The sword thing pisses me off to no end. I'm right there with you. Because according to Ian, the sword is basically a splinter now. Yeah. We've sort of drained away the power of the sword. We've basically changed the sword, so the sword no longer does any damage. The thing that pisses me off about that is, well, give me answers around the sword then. Explain to me what was the purpose of the sword. Explain to me what exactly was the source of the sword, poisoning Azeroth. What was it that poisoned Azeroth? Because we still have never received an answer for that. People hate canon this shit and go, oh, it's the foul. Well, can you prove it? Can you prove that it is foul magic? No, you can't, because we don't know. You can't prove that Sargeras wanted to kill Azeroth because you don't know, right? We know that he stabbed Azeroth, but the previous Titan he killed, he cleaved the planet in half. Why didn't he cleave Azeroth? Why did he decide to stab Azeroth? Then you have people completely ignoring the lore behind the Warlock weapon, where it actually states that Sargeras may have been in love with Azeroth after having a dream about Azeroth as he fell through the planet. So clearly he wouldn't have wanted to destroy, right? I sort of feel like there is a lot of issues there that currently, at least, we just don't know. That's sort of the only answer I have right now for you, is don't pay too much attention to the sword, because it doesn't seem like Blizzard cares about the sword right now. And also, it doesn't state that Azeroth is healed. It just states that Azeroth is healing, which means she is healing. So the sword is still there, but clearly the sword did not actually puncture her, Azeroth, the essence of Azeroth. It punctured the world, but it didn't do enough damage to kill her. So that is something that probably Blizzard could use as a future plot point or a future story hook, something to that effect. I don't really know, but I'm right there with you. The sword still being there with still no answers about the sword is a problem.
Yeah, okay. The last thing was really when Alexstrada said, together we will be the protectors of Azeroth again. Yeah. And I immediately thought about the end cinematic of Kata, where she said, our time is over, the era of mortals has begun. And 10 years later, nah, just kidding. We will do it ourselves. We lost our aspect powers, but I think, we will get them somehow with our old friend Denusa.
You see, the way I would look at that is they had no way of knowing that Azeroth would ever truly be healed again. Because remember, after the Sundering, Azeroth took sustained damage. Damage that wasn't really healing. Azeroth could get back to a semblance of normality. She wasn't dying, but she wasn't strengthening at all. She was basically just barely holding on. They could not have foreseen what the Shadowlands would have done, and us then obviously infusing Azeroth with all of that anima power. So they would never have known whether or not the Dragon Isles could ever actually be opened. When they poured all of their power into the Dragon Soul, they most likely truly believed that their time as Dragonflights, their time as aspects, has come to an end. It's not that they were no longer aspects. It's not that they no longer had power. It's that they had poured so much of their own power into that Dragon Soul that that power would most likely never actually return, because they've basically depleted themselves. So they still have some magic because they're dragons of magic, but they no longer have the power of the aspects, as it were. Now that the Dragon Isles have opened again, they have access again to their original power sources. So all of the Dragonflights can once again power up to like full power, so they can be the protectors of Azeroth again. Something that they wouldn't have known all the way back in Cataclysm. Now again, all of this is going to rely on how does Steve Denuser deal with this story. You know, how do they explain this story to us as the players? But if he does a good job and he actually manages to explain it logically from the Cataclysm cinematic all the way to now, I do think it can work. I do think it can work, if that makes sense. Get it?
Wrong button, sorry.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
And do you have hope that will happen?
Can I plead the fifth? This is such a positive stream. I don't want to bring it down with any negativity. But you mind if I just not answer that, and let me say we'll see. We'll see if Denuser can actually achieve that level of storytelling. I mean, I'll be the first to complain when he doesn't. Let's put it that way. I will complain if he doesn't. But I do think it shouldn't be too hard. This is not like we're not talking about fucking Shakespeare levels of writing here, right? It's a simple explanation that we require. So yeah, I really hope that Steve nails it. Look, I for one I want to be hopeful. I want to believe that I'm wrong about Steve Denuser, and I will be the first one to apologize if Steve Denuser knocks this story out of the park. I will be the first to apologize to him and say I was completely wrong. Clearly, he was backed into a corner by Alex Afrasiabi and the horrible writing that guy did for the Sylvanas story. So yeah, I want to be wrong about most of the things that I believe about Blizzard right now. So yeah, I'd be happy if it would be good if I could go, yeah, all right, I was wrong. But yeah,
me too, actually.
That's sort of all I can say right now. Anyways, thank you so much for the questions, dude. Really appreciate it.
And that was for me already. Thank you really much for your time, and also it was really nice to have another point of opinion, because I really felt that I was really nitpicky with the cinematic, and yeah, you cleared a lot of my doubts about it, and so thank you.
I'm very happy to be of service. Thank you so much, dude. Really appreciate it. Take care of yourself, man.
You too. Bye.
Goodbye.